Good afternoon and welcome to the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee meeting for December 9th, 2024. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. If there are no changes, we can proceed. All right. Seeing none, we're moving on to approval of the November 25th, 2024 committee meeting minutes. Were there changes or additions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Councilmember Chambliss, second by Councilmember Morales. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the minutes are adopted. On to reports. We have MTS Services Director Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, council members. We're in a season of appreciation and recognition, and just wanted to share that last week MTS had a division-wide recognition event where we got together all in one room, which I don't think we've done in a couple of years outside of town hall, but that was more of a hybrid format. And it was great to see everybody. Everybody introduced themselves. We reflected on tremendous work that we've done over the last year, including the item that we'll end with tonight. But just wanted to mention on that, and hope to have more staff to introduce to you as we get into the new year as well. Second, just wanted to mention that we are recruiting for TAAC members that the council appoints. So every year we appoint one set of members. This year it is for TAAC citizen districts A through D, or sorry, E through H. And so that's kind of the east side of the region. We have members we anticipate will reapply, but also members, at least one member who's been elected to a city council and will not be reapplying. So we'll be continuing to accept applications through this week and then looking to appoint in the new year through a council action. But that work is ongoing, so if you know folks on the east side who are not elected officials or public employees, we would welcome them to apply online for service on the Transportation Advisory Board. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? And I'll just offer, if anyone has a name of somebody who might be interested in one of the TAAC seats, I'm more than happy to chat with them. I'm sure Charles will be too, about what kind of time it takes and what kind of the role is. So if there's no other questions, we'll serve to Metro Transit General Manager Candaris.
Right, Chair Barber, council members, just wanted to mention that December 7th, this past Saturday, our quarterly service changes did go into effect. We had previously presented on those a little while back, but they are now our current schedule. So just wanted to note that. With that, I'll open myself up to questions. I don't have much else to report tonight, so I'll hand it back to you.
All right. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Carter.
Thank you. With great appreciation for the service changes and enhancements, I continue to hear from people in the community who are looking forward to longer hours, in particular on our light rail lines. I don't know what you would have to share at this point in time. I just wanted to, make it clear that I continue to hear those concerns. They're grateful for the expanded service and looking forward to hours expansions as well. Anything to comment would be helpful.
Chair Barber, Councilmember Carter, appreciate that feedback, and certainly we hear from riders as well about an interest in increased span across the system. And as part of the Network Now public engagement, we did receive comments about hours of service. So as we pull that together and prepare to bring the final Network Now framework to the council next year, early next year, we can speak more about that. I will mention it is a function in part of our resources and our ability to have people to provide service. And so really through the Network Now process is where we are prioritizing those service improvements. So.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, thank you. All right, on to business. We do not have a TAAC report tonight, so there are no items on the consent agenda this evening. Our first non-consent business item is business item 2024-317 and 318, actually. And we'll have Adam Smith and Reed Sherlock here to present.
Good afternoon. Chair Barber, committee members. My name is Adam Smith. I'm a manager of BRT projects within the arterial BRT department. And before these next two items are presented, I wanted to take a moment to introduce Reed Sherlock, as this is his first time presenting before this committee. Reed joined the arterial BRT department this past June as agreements lead. And before coming to Metro Transit, he worked as a transportation planner in Southern California. In his role in arterial BRT, Reed leads the development and implementation of interagency agreements across our arterial BRT lines. These agency partnerships play a really critical role in successful delivery of arterial BRT projects. So we're very happy to have Reed on the team to lead that work. And with that, I will hand things over for him for these items.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, Adam. Chair Barber, committee members, the next two items are both similar items related to the Metro G line. So I'll start with a brief background and a little bit of a refresher for both items. The Metro G line is a planned arterial BRT line that will run 11.5 miles along a corridor primarily on Rice Street and Robert Street, passing through downtown St. Paul. This project will enhance transit on this corridor currently served by Route 62 and 68. In this G-Line corridor, there are multiple roadway projects currently planned by St. Paul, Ramsey County, and MnDOT. And as we've done on previous arterial BRT projects, we plan to collaborate with these partner agencies when their projects coincide with the G-Line in order to reduce cost and minimize community impact from construction. Typically, when we collaborate with partner agencies, the partner's contractor will pour and construct the platforms and station foundation. And then once this work is complete, a future G-Line contractor will come in to install the shelters, pylons, and other station amenities. Both of these items I'm presenting relate to cooperative construction agreements for roadway projects in this corridor. And both projects will be federally funded, so they will have DBE goals established by the lead agency constructing the project. These two roadway projects are planned to begin construction in 2025. So based on this timeline, a same-week council action is requested to ensure timely advancement of these agreements. Now moving on to the first of these items. Business item 2024-317, same week, deals with a cooperative construction agreement with Ramsey County for construction of station platforms for the Metro G line. Construction of 5 G line stations coincides with Ramsey County's Rice Street Visioning and Reconstruction project that will be happening on Rice Street between Pennsylvania Avenue and Wheelock Parkway. Through this agreement, the council will contribute funds to the county's construction contract to construct G-line stations at 5 intersections along Rice Street as part of the county's project. Construction of this project is anticipated to start in 2025 and continue through 2027. In closing, business item 2024-317, same week, requests that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Agreement 24I-001 with Ramsey County for the county's construction of Metro G-Line station platforms in conjunction with the county's Rice Street Visioning and Reconstruction project in an amount not to exceed $1,800,000. With that, Adam and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Vento.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious as to, there are a number of residences and small businesses along this line who I know will benefit when this is all finished, but in the meantime, they're going to go through a lot of stress. And I'm curious as to what expectations or responsibilities are kind of delineated for the various partners as to how to handle it. My reason for asking this question is shortly before Thanksgiving, I happened to be near the home of a woman whose story was written about in the Pioneer Press. I don't even remember when, but she basically is living in a setting that none of us would want to be living in. It is right adjacent to one of the Gold Line stops. just off of 94 in Etna. And I recall reading the letter and feeling badly for her. I was almost physically sick when I saw what her front view is. She's gone from having a private, comfortable home. She's, I believe, a retired school employee, if my memory serves me correctly. So I would guess that this home is her financial investment, a good chunk of what she hopes to live off of for the rest of her life, and its value. But I can't help but believe that the value of that home has plunged. I wouldn't buy it. And that's not meant to be critical of her or critical of us, I hope. But I'm concerned about the impact that these kinds of developments have on a homeowner, short-term, but most definitely long-term. And I'm really concerned about the impact it has on businesses. I think many of us probably saw the article about the Otter Saloon and what they've been going through with all of the construction and on a fairly regular basis for that area. So what kind of expectations do we have? I know we do, I know that for this proposed Blue Line light rail extension, there's the displacement funding, but we haven't done that for other routes, and yet we've had people who have either temporarily or to some extent even permanently displaced either physically or financially. So that's a pretty heavy question, but it's been weighing on me.
Yeah, Chair Barber, committee members, yeah, thank you for that question. So, in a case like this, where we are coordinating with a roadway agency who is leading the project, they're really taking a lot of the lead roles when it comes to that engagement with business owners, with property owners along the corridor. And certainly then our staff, Metro Transit staff, are stepping in and working with the county to provide, that information when it's more related to the, transit component of the project. I know Ramsey County has been leading a pretty robust engagement effort throughout development of this project through the planning and design phase, and certainly, communicating the design and how transit will be integrated into the design along Rice Street is part of that engagement effort. So, I think we've looked to answer questions where we can. Certainly when it comes to arterial BRT, we're always looking to, wherever we can, keep our stations within the transportation right-of-way to help minimize impacts on adjacent property owners. And I know the county has looked at things like just phasing and staging the project in terms of considering impacts on businesses. So Reed mentioned that this project will be constructed over the course of 3 years, and part of that is really to keep any one segment of Rice Street under construction, sort of limited, so that it's not, kind of a great length any given year that's being constructed. So, for our part, we'll certainly continue to work with the county and provide that information where we can, and as plans and designs are being developed, we're always attuned to perspectives of station neighbors.
Councilmember Vento.
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you for that answer. And Reed, by the way, I should have started by saying you did a great job. I don't know if your feet were fidgeting or you were nervous, but you did a great job. I would hope that we really amp it up, because ultimately the Met Council is going to be the ones who get blamed. As I recall, the letter to the editor, or the article in the St. Paul paper, as well as a couple of the signs in this woman's front yard, kind of lays this at our feet. So whatever we can do to really emphasize with the partners, and frankly even budget possible plan Bs, so that if we get ourselves into a situation where we really know that we're either temporarily or permanently imposing, we can correct it, I think that would be wise. I think it's responsible development to acknowledge, we cut this a little close, we gotta go to plan B. So thank you very much.
Okay, additional questions or comments? All right, seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2024-317, same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries, and back to you, Reed.
Thank you, Chair Barber. Members, business item 2024-318, same week, also deals with a cooperative construction agreement, this time with the City of St. Paul for construction of station platforms for the Metro G line. Construction of 3 G-line stations coincides with St. Paul's Robert Street Reconstruction project in downtown St. Paul. And through this agreement, the council will contribute funds to the city's construction contract to construct 3 G-line stations along Robert Street as part of the city's project. Construction of this project is anticipated to occur in 2025. One of the stations included in this agreement is at Robert and 10th Street, and this station is intended to be used by both the G-line and the Purple Line once both projects have opened. Additionally, the station at Robert and 6th Street, also included in this agreement, is located adjacent to the Met Council's Robert Street building in downtown St. Paul, so it should be easy for members to observe the construction as it occurs throughout next year. In closing, business item 2024-318, same week, requests that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Agreement 24I-013 with the City of St. Paul for construction of Metro G-Line BRT station platforms in conjunction with the city's Robert Street Reconstruction project in an amount not to exceed $1,400,000. With that, Adam and I are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2024-318, same week.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Tony Carter, seconded by Councilmember Morales. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. So, thank you both. All right, and now we're on to a series of business items that I'm going to bring Katie Roth and Ed Petrie up. They're going to do a small presentation, and then we'll go through each of the items.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Barber. Good afternoon, council members. Katie Roth, Director, Arterial BRT.
Ed Petrie, Director of Finance, Metro Transit.
All right, and as the chair mentioned, the presentation that I am about to go through frames 4 actions today: 2024-315, 316, 335, and 332. And so with your permission, Chair, I'll present this narrative in its entirety before coming back to read each item for the committee's consideration. All right, so the requested actions today all deal with state bond funding appropriated by the legislature for the D, B, and E lines back in 2020. So for today's presentation, the short version of this is that we are moving some funding around between projects and ultimately keeping whole the overall project budgets, but with a lot of moves between pieces. I'll walk through the background on the bonds that we received for the D, B, and E lines, the issue at hand, which is new parameters as of August of this year that deal with eligible expenditures for these bonds. I'll walk through a summary of the actions being taken to solve for this issue, including items 2024-315 and 316. And finally, I will walk through specific circumstances related to an action we're asking the council to take to secure bond funding budgeted for contingency in the B-line project budget. So thank you, and thank you for bearing with me through the complexity of this presentation. I hope to make it pretty clear. So back in 2020, we were fortunate that the legislature included $55 million for ABRT in its bonding bill, which passed in October in the 5th special session and was signed into law by the governor shortly thereafter. The law stipulates that the funding be used for the B line, the D line, and to the extent funding remains, to the E line for design and engineering. And as with other state bonds, we understood that the 2020 state bonds must be encumbered or otherwise obligated 4 years from the year of their issuance, so by December 31st of 2024, to avoid becoming subject to cancellation. At that time, we did not have final budgets for these projects. We hadn't yet opened bids on the D-line project, and the B-line was very early in engineering at that point with early cost estimates. So based on that uncertainty, the funding was authorized into the capital budget as shown in the initial setup line at the top of this table here, with the funding we estimated would be needed for the D and B-line budgets and an amount in a placeholder project. After we were able to establish that this funding would not be needed for either the D-line or the B-line, we moved that into the E-line project in the first quarter of 2021 to advance engineering per the language in the bonding bill. Subsequently, of course, we opened the D line in 2022 under budget. And so across 2023, we were able to, in 2 steps, move unspent contingency from that project into the B line and E line projects. So the bottom line of this table shows the bonds as they are budgeted today, with $6.2 million in the D line project, $38.3 million in the B line, and $10.5 million in the E line project. So back to this language, in August of this year, Minnesota Management and Budget, or MMB, informed the council that based on their bond council's interpretation of the law, none of these state bonds can be expended on the E line while we are still continuing to make draws on the B line and the D line projects. Our interpretation and the intent of the negotiation in 2020 was based on completing the project budgets, whereas MMB has read the statute to mean completing the projects in full. So because we continue to make draws as we close out the D-line project, and of course the B-line remains in construction, that means that these funds are essentially restricted in their use on the E-line through the cancellation deadline of December 31st of this year. Therefore, the key issue that we're here today solving for is that $10.5 million of 2020 state bonds authorized in the E-line project must instead be used on the B-line or the D-line. And other funding sources must be identified for the E-line project, or we lose that funding. So over the past 3 months, I've worked closely with a broad team of staff to come up with the plan I'm going to walk you through on the next few slides to solve this problem. I do want to just call out that it's been a really collaborative effort across the council, starting with staff on my team, including Reed and Adam and Frank, and including Ed's team in finance, Kristen Prescott in capital programs finance, and also RA finance, procurement, government affairs, engineering and facilities, and OGC. It's really been a team effort. We're also very grateful to our partners at Hennepin and Ramsey counties for being willing to go through a lot of process on their ends to execute elements of this plan together as well. I'll also note that this approach was presented to MMB staff late last month, and we did receive their affirmative head nod that this would meet the needs of MMB and ensure that these bonds would not be subject to cancellation following these changes. So what this table shows is that the fourth quarter budget amendment fully removes the $10.5 million in 2020 state bonds from the E-line project budget. These actions are summarized in 3 main buckets, which I'll walk through on the following slides. And I'll come back to this summary after we go through each of those so you can see how it fits together. The first and largest of the 3 buckets shifts about $6.8 million in funding used to match federal grants on the D and B lines. So we are moving state bonds into those federal grants as match and then moving out RTC, MVEST, and state appropriation dollars into the E-line. I'll just note here that the graphic you see is going to show up on the next few slides. It shows the starting point on the left of the $10.5 million in state bonds that we need to reallocate and traces through the various shifts that make up that reallocation to where we're going to land on the right side of the graphic. So with these shifts, there's no change in the total authorization amount in the 3 projects, just in the source of funding between them. And this set of shifts is included in the fourth quarter budget amendment with no separate council action needed. The second bucket deals with the fiber optic network needed to provide connectivity between B-line stations and our network hub here on the Haywood campus. We identified about $900,000 in B-line bond-eligible project costs that are needed to provide that B-line connectivity, but have been accounted for in separate projects. In the case of downtown Minneapolis fiber connection, we moved bonds into that project from the E-line and shifted out an equal amount of RTC back into the E-line project. And in the case of some work on the E-line itself, we actually decreased the E-line budget by about $500,000 and will be increasing the B-line budget to absorb this work into that project and fund it with bonds. This set of shifts is also included in the fourth quarter budget amendment and also does not attach to a separate council action. Now we move to the third bucket, which deals with the local work agreements with our county partners. So I'll address Hennepin County first on this slide as the subject of business item 2024-315. So working with Hennepin County, we identified approximately $1.7 million of work that they funded alongside the Beeline project that could be both an eligible use of Beeline bonds and would be eligible under the Beeline's environmental document. We're in the process of executing amendment to our Beeline agreement with the county that reduces their participation in the Beeline by that $1.7 million. I'll note that that amendment does not require council action, so I just note that as context today. It's not one of the actions we are bringing to you all. With the Beeline bonds being used for that work, the county will instead fund an additional $1.7 million of improvements on the E-Line project. And the action before the council today seeks to amend our E-Line agreement to receive that additional funding. This funding would also be recognized in the fourth quarter budget amendment, contingent on Hennepin County's board action planned for December 12th on the E-Line agreement amendment. Next, on this slide, we have a similar approach with Ramsey County. In the case of Ramsey County, we are reducing the county's participation in our Beeline agreement by $1.1 million and funding that amount instead with bonds shifted from the E-Line to the Beeline. But because we do not have an agreement with Ramsey County on the E-Line project based on where it's located, there's another step involved here. We then shift $1.1 million in 2023 state bonds from the E-Line project to, shift the state bonds from the G-Line project to the E-Line project. Then the county's former Beeline funding, $1.1 million, is used to fund the G-Line. The action before the committee today establishes a new funding agreement with Ramsey County for this purpose, for that new funding. One note on this agreement is that while we are seeking council action on the agreement today, we will not seek to authorize that funding into the capital budget until January because Ramsey County's board action is planned for January 14th. So bringing this all back together, you can see how the three buckets here add up to the $10.5 million mark in that E-Line column. So the grant match sources, the largest chunk there, the eligible fiber optic expenses shifting, and then the local work agreements, including both Hennepin and Ramsey counties. So after solving for the $10.5 million shift from the E-Line, there is one more step remaining to ensure that the full $55 million in bonds is secured prior to the December 31st cancellation deadline. That deals with encumbrance, or demonstrating that the funding is committed in contracts or otherwise obligated to delivering the projects that it was appropriated for. So the top line of this table shows the amount of those $55 million in bonds that will be in each project following the fourth quarter budget amendment. Of that amount, the full amount of D-Line funding has been expended or encumbered by year end. However, on the B-Line, you see that just over $4 million is not expended or encumbered. That funding, however, is still needed in the project budget for contingency. Now, typically, we do not take any formal action through council to establish project contingency. It is included in our authorized project budgets and there for use as needed. But in this case, we need to take action to formally demonstrate that this funding is needed in the project and should not be subject to cancellation per the process spelled out in state statute. And so, working with MMB, we identified that we could establish that this unencumbered funding is otherwise obligated by bringing forward a resolution to the council. So this brings us to business item 2024-335, which will go to management committee as well on Wednesday. So resolution 2024-26 resolves that the remaining unencumbered bonds in the B-Line project are otherwise obligated for potential changes through the construction final completion date, which is December 31st of 2025. So while the B-Line is scheduled to open for revenue service on June 14th of next year, our construction contracts establish the final completion date as December 31st, which is why you see that date here. Council action on this resolution would allow for the unencumbered funds to avoid being subject to cancellation and continue to be available through the completion of B-Line construction in keeping with industry best practice and council procedure. So Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and I will pause there for questions before moving on to the business items themselves.
Thank you very much for describing something that's very complicated, but in a very nice way. I think that was helpful for everyone. Questions, comments, thoughts? Councilmember Vento.
Amazing presentation.
Exactly.
And I want to know who does these graphs, the colored charts, man alive. An artist. I mean, wow. No, excellent report.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Additional questions, comments? Councilmember Carter.
Thank you for preserving our ability to use all of the funds and also to make sure our projects are completed.
Additional? Councilmember Chambliss.
I just am appreciative of this presentation too, but it also demonstrates that when we have so many different modes of transportation, that it's not static. Things do change. We have to look closely at, what the requirements are as we're moving all these different projects forward. And so there's sometimes that there is uncertainty that we manage, and that's just part of the work that we do.
Additional questions, comments? That's just amazing. I'll echo all these great things everyone has said that, number one, that preserving the funds so we can use them as much as possible is just incredible. And the way it was presented I think if you hadn't had the graphics, I mean, it kind of shows you kind of where everything actually is going and how that's happening. So when I first got briefed on this, the first time I was very confused and required additional assistance. So, but I think going through it and seeing some of that and hearing your description has really been helpful. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay. So I think our first business item is 2024-316, is that right?
I believe
315.
2024-315 is first on the agenda.
Oh, 315, got it, sorry.
So Chair Barber, business item 2024-315 requests that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to execute Amendment 1 to Agreement 23I-083, Joint Powers and Cooperative Construction Agreement with Hennepin County to receive up to $1.7 million in additional funds for construction of improvements along the Metro E-Line corridor.
Thank you. With that, any questions or comments? Then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2024-315 same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Tony Carter. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Back to you.
All right, Chair Barber, business item 2024-316 requests that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Agreement 24I-059, an income agreement in an amount exceeding $500,000 with Ramsey County for the Metro G-Line project.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion then to approve business item 2024-316 same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Back to you, Katie.
Okay, the next item is business item 2024-335JT, same week. It's a Metro B-Line Resolution 2024-26, establishing the obligation for the project contingency. The proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council pass Resolution 2024-26, establishing the obligation for the Metro B-Line project contingency through December 31, 2025. This proposed action, as Katie had mentioned, will establish the remaining $4,031,096 of unencumbered funds in the Metro B-Line project are otherwise obligated for potential changes in order for funds to remain available for use in project contingency through final completion on December 31st, 2025 for the Metro B-Line. And what I will do is I'm just going to read through. It's very complicated. I'm going to read through, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'll read through the resolution point by point. A couple weeks ago, like Katie mentioned, we met with MMB. We went through the resolution point by point, and they nodded their heads at the end of it. So I think we pretty well hit everything that they wanted to see with the resolution. And first of all, I just want to recognize Katie, the work her and her team have done this. Because when we got the phone call in August, it was just like, it was shocking. And so we have done a lot of work. Katie and her staff have done a lot of work to save this money. So I'll go ahead, I'll read the resolution. Okay, so the Metropolitan Council Resolution 2024-26, whereas in 2020, the Minnesota State Legislature appropriated $55 million in bonding for the D-Line, B-Line, and to the extent funding remained, after completion of those projects, the E line. Whereas $12,909,177 of the total appropriation is authorized in the D-line project effective as of December, or as of 2024 fourth quarter budget amendment, of which $12,909,177 will be expended or encumbered in contracts before December 31, 2024, leaving an encumbered balance of zero for the D-line. Whereas $42,090,823 of the total bond appropriation is authorized in the B-line project effective as of the 2024 fourth quarter budget amendment, of which $38,059,727 will be expended or encumbered in contracts before December 31, 2024, and the balance of $4,031,096 is budgeted contingency on the project. Whereas Minnesota Statute Section 16A-642 requires the Commissioner of Minnesota Management and Budget, MMB, to report to the legislature by January 1 of each year remaining capital appropriations enacted more than 4 years prior to that date. The reported amounts that are unencumbered or otherwise not obligated automatically cancel unless reauthorized by the legislature. All funding from the 2020 bonding bill that has not been obligated or expended by December 31, 2024 will be canceled effective July 1, 2025 unless it is reappropriated by the legislature. Whereas the B-line is scheduled to enter revenue service on June 14, 2025, and the council has entered into multiple contracts for the B-line that will continue to be active through the construction final completion date of December 31, 2025. Whereas industry best practice and council procedure requires budgeted contingency to be held on active projects through completion, and whereas as part of the Minnesota Statute Section 16A-642 process, unencumbered funds may avoid becoming subject to cancellation if the council establishes that contingency is otherwise obligated for potential changes as the project progresses towards 2025 completion. So now therefore be it resolved that $4,031,096 of unencumbered state bonds in the Metro B-line project 62802 budget be established as project contingency to be otherwise obligated for potential changes through the construction final completion date of December 31, 2025. So with that, Madam Chair and the committee members, that the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council pass resolution 2024-26, establishing obligation for Metro B-line project contingency through December 31, 2025. And I rest.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? All right, before I call for a motion, just want to say one more time, really amazing work. Like this, to do that, all of this in that short of time, I mean, really took some great focus and a lot of work. So it's very much appreciated. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2024-335, which is a joint same week item.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales,
Second.
second by Councilmember Vento. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, we have one more item.
Oh, I thought we didn't. Oh, was
We
it the
have-
budget amendment?
Yes, the budget amendment.
Oh, I thought that was
Chair and
separate,
committee
sorry.
members, business item 2024-332, JT, same week. It's the 2024 budget amendment, the fourth quarter budget amendment. The proposed action is that the council, Metropolitan Council authorize the 2024 unified budget amendment as indicated and in accordance with the tables, attached tables. The first portion of the budget amendment includes all the adjustments that Katie has discussed for the D, B, and E line. I'm not going to go through them again. She's gone through them very, very detailed. The second portion of the budget amendment includes two items. First of all, the blue line extension, LRT project 61403. This amendment will add $166,480,000 in Hennepin County funds to the blue line extension per amendment number 1 to the capital grant agreement that was approved by the council back on November 11th, 2024. And also recognizes $41,620,000 in HICR funds per amendment 1 to the capital grant agreement as approved by the council on 11/13/2024. So the council had previously taken action back in November. We completed the agreement, so now we're bringing the funds now available into the capital budget. The final item is the final item that Katie did discuss. This is for the E-line project 61004. This is once again contingent upon Hennepin County action on 12/12, their Hennepin County Board action, and the council's action on 12/11. But this will authorize and execute amendment to agreement number 23I-083. This amendment recognizes $1,698,835 in Hennepin County funding for the E-line project. This follows the decision by both agencies to include the same amount of project eligible, county-funded, formerly local work outside of the capital project and program into the B-line capital project. The offset county participation will be used to fund eligible E-line project costs. So Madam Chair, committee members, that is the summation of the fourth quarter budget amendment. And the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the 2024 Unified Budget Amendment as indicated and in accordance with the attached tables. This item will go to the Management Committee on Wednesday and also to the full council on Wednesday.
Councilmember Carter.
I just want to thankfully move the amendment.
Very good. Is there, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Morales. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those nay, and the motion carries. All right, thank you both. All right, one final business item, and just for my fellow council members, speaking with the chair, the first couple of items, the G line will go on the consent agenda. The first two items, the agreement with Hennepin County and Ramsey County will also go on the consent agenda due to kind of the resolution and the budget amendment will go non-consent. If everyone's good with that. Okay. All right, now I'll turn it back to you guys. We've got the TSP mobile hardware upgrade, and we have Juan Villanova and Claire Curd.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Claire Curd, Intelligent Transportation Systems Engineer in the Bus Technology Systems Group. I'm here with Juan Villanueva, Acting Manager of the Bus Technology Systems Group. We're presenting the Transit Signal Priority, or TSP, Mobile Hardware Upgrade Project, contract number 24P288, business item 2024-338, same week. This project will procure and install 143 new M-Track vehicle computer units, or VCUs, and antennas on board revenue vehicles to replace outdated equipment of the same type. The VCUs serve the primary function of requesting transit signal priority as buses approach TSP-enabled intersections. They also communicate with the pylons at BRT stations to enable the T flashing as the bus approaches. They're also used to transmit data from TSP activities to devices when buses park in the Metro Transit garage. They're also used to open gates at the stations that we have on 35W at 46th Street and on Highway 77 at Cedar Grove. We have a sole source approved for this project with ACT Traffic Solutions. Metro Transit exclusively uses the M-Track proprietary system for its transit signal priority, and ACT Traffic Solutions is the sole provider of that equipment in the state of Minnesota. And this project is facilitated with $697,300 in local funds. This project is part of phase one of an upgrade of 340 revenue vehicles that have these outdated VCUs. We're replacing this equipment because for several reasons. It's past the manufacturer's recommended life cycle. Manufacturer recommends that these have a life on board of no more than 7 years. Some of this equipment is over 10 years old. Further, as the TSP network is rapidly expanding with 3 new BRT routes coming on with Gold Line and B Line and E Line, we are actually reaching the limit of the number of intersections that can with TSP that these older VCUs can support. So an upgrade is necessary to enable further expansion in later years as more BRT lines come online. It's also incompatible with several of our desired TSP operations. Newer models of VCUs can enable pretty robust interactions with the traffic signals as they request transit signal priority, and these older models are not capable of that. This upgrade of 143 VCUs will ensure that the entire BRT dedicated fleet has most up-to-date equipment, and it will partially upgrade our 40-foot local route fleet The second phase, which we are planning for later in 2025, as more funding becomes available, will address the remaining approximately 200 vehicles that need this replacement as well. So with that said, our recommended action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute sole source contract 24P288 with ACT Traffic Solutions in an amount not to exceed $697,300.
Good, thank you. Are there questions or comments from council members? All right, seeing none, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2024-338, same week.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Morales. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tyrone Carter. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Thank you so much. All right, so that does it for our business this evening. Does the last one go consent? Yeah. So, we'll find out, we'll check our agenda for Wednesday to see if we put item 7 as consent or non-consent. If everyone's good with that. All right, now we're on to information items. So our first information item is the 2024 third quarter ridership report. We have John Harper and Joey Reed here to present. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. John Harper, Manager of Contracted Transit Service in MTS, here with Joey Reed, Principal Data Scientist, sorry about that. Principal Data Scientist with Strategic Initiatives. I had that all figured out until I sat up here. As we do quarterly, we are here to present to you the ridership of our various services. And I will start with the what, and Joey will follow up with the why of our ridership. When we came before you, let me start by saying this graph shows the year-over-year ridership between 2023 in the green line and 2024, the blue line on this graph. When we came before you last quarter, we had closed out June, and we saw that those lines were converging, and were paying close attention to see whether that meant that our ridership increases were slowing down. But as you see here, the last 3 months, we've continued the upward trend over last year. And so we are 9% over last year, 2024 over 2023. So 9% increase overall. This set of bar charts shows you that our local ridership is the vast majority, half of our service, and light rail is 30%. So between those two types of service, that's about 75% of our service overall, and our other modes fill in from there. As you can see here, we are over increased ridership year over year in all the different types of service that we operate, and so we are up. And this table shows a breakdown of the bus mode into its component parts. And once again, the news is good. So I feel good here presenting for you, because it's all modes and types of service have an increase. And our bus rapid transit lines continue to grow at the highest level, but we are also seeing increase in local and express as well. And so we are, as I say, all types of service within the bus mode increase. So I will break down this slide a little bit for you, because last quarter was the first time that we presented this breakdown of our demand responsive programs. So I'll just walk through this once more as we get comfortable with displaying a little more detail. Our programs, just to refresh your memory, Transit Link is our general public dial-a-ride program. Micro Transit here incorporates what was called Metro Transit Micro, now being called Metro Micro, which just now is transitioning from a North Minneapolis only pilot to a full-fledged program. And North Minneapolis is our only zone at this point, but on January 6th, we will launch Roseville area and Woodbury area zones. And as encompassed in the Network Now study or plan, we will expand by 2 zones per year up until 9 zones over the next 4 years. And so you'll see that number increase. Metro Mobility, I think we all know what that is. That is our primary ADA, special transportation service. Metro Move is the program that we launched in May to make use or to capture human service funding and to be really responsive to the human service program needs that are being asked of us, and move it out of our ADA program, Metro Mobility, into a different kind of program. And so you'll see that number increase. What I want to point out here on this slide, just two numbers of note, the microtransit, the Metro Micro number, we're really comparing one zone to one zone, same vehicle hours to same vehicle hours. And so this reduction of about 2,000 rides is really just a marginal decrease for the quarter. We continue to improve our stats, and in Q4, you'll see the numbers increasing, as a matter of fact, and then into next year, as I mentioned. And I'll also note that we moved 50,000 rides that were in our Metro Mobility program into Metro Move, and still Metro Mobility is increasing. And so as we've experienced for many years, Metro Mobility continues to grow, and we expect that trend to continue as our population ages and makes more use of that kind of service. So these are all good numbers, and overall the service is increasing, and increasing all modes, all type, and so that's good news. And I'll hand it over here to Joey to drill down a little bit into the why of that.
Thank you, John. So we're seeing bus, light rail, and BRT really lead that ridership growth. The numbers that John presented to you are always a little abstract to me, so I like to see it visually like this. In gray, the lighter gray here is 2023, so anything that sort of stands out above the gray and black is the 2024 number. So where you have black above gray, that's the growth. You can see that local bus is still our largest component, and that the growth on local bus still is sort of larger than other bus and rail components. I really want to focus on this growth bit, though. So we'll sort of zoom in on that, and now we're looking at just that growth, so just the additional ridership since 2023. The percentages at the top now represent the percentage of the total growth. So local bus represents 40% of total ridership growth in our system. Light rail, which is blue and green line, 28% of ridership growth. And BRT, which is 5 BRT routes, make up 29% of ridership growth. So really interesting to me the way those 7 routes in light rail and BRT make up more total growth in the system than all the rest combined. If we break out those groups, light rail and BRT, we're looking at the same sort of idea of 2024 in the darker color and 2023 in the lighter color below it. You can see that a huge amount of that growth is occurring in green line and in D line. So light rail represents 30% of the system ridership and is up nearly 900,000 rides, or 8%, and represents 27% of system-wide ridership growth. Nearly all of that is green line growth. BRT, 16% of system ridership, but is 28% of system-wide ridership growth. So really outperforming our other routes. And D-line is now at almost 70% of Blue Line ridership, which is just really phenomenal. So if we combine these sort of broken out bits back with the like larger categories of local bus, commuter, and North Star, you can get a sense now for like really the ridership dominance and the growth dominance of both Green Line and D Line. So nearly half of all ridership growth in the system is on Green Line and D Line. So that sort of came across as just some stats, but I think it really helps explain the why of the ridership growth we're seeing. We've got growth across all of BRT, with the most growth happening in D Line. We've got growth in light rail, with most of that growth happening in Green Line on light rail, D Line on BRT. And then, we're looking forward to Gold, B, and E Line opening, and that's really reinforcing this network of fast, frequent, all-day reliable services that are driving the growth that we've seen this last year. Thank you.
Take questions if you have them.
Yeah, questions, comments, Councilmember Tyrone Carter, then Chambliss.
Thank you. I had my question is contrast. I really had never heard of Metro Move before. Could you contrast Metro Move versus Metro Mobility?
Sure, Madam Chair and committee member. Prior to May of this year, all of the transit that we did for folks who were certified as disabled was within our Metro Mobility program, and it was done in the context of it being an Americans with Disability Act complementary service. About 20% of that, 25% of that work was done supporting people with waivers, which are human service. The Department of Human Service issues waivers for people to receive within the community support that keeps them from being institutionalized. So maybe 40 years ago, we would put them in an institution. Instead, we keep them in the community, being productive members of community by issuing waivers or offering waiver funding. And so about 25% of our Metro Mobility customers' service was delivered for people receiving waivers. We implemented Metro Move in May to do two things. One, to recognize that these rides are being delivered in the human service context as opposed to strictly at being complementary ADA, and to capture human service funding for this service to offset the cost, as opposed to public transit funding to offset the cost. And if I misstated any of that, Charles Carlson, you can correct my statement. But the point overall really, like I say, is to align the funding and to recognize the ridership supporting these waiver trips.
So Metro Move is a subset of Metro Mobility.
Sorry,
Line with those waivers.
Madam Chair and committee member, Metro Move and Metro Mobility are both special transportation services under the state law, but they really serve two different purposes. And the one, Metro Mobility, being what we would traditionally think of as being public transit service, and Metro Move being human service transit, both being delivered by us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. I was just very intrigued by that explanation, which I've learned more than what I knew before about Metro Move. So it's sometimes helpful to hear it again. Do you have an idea about or some hunches about why the Green Line increased its ridership? You know, was it development around the Green Line or more connections?
Madam Chair, council member, I could guess, but I don't have a strong hunch about if it's development related. My best guess, to be honest, is that Green Line does have quite a bit of transit-oriented development around it, more so than Blue Line. And, you know, you would just think about it as a stronger transit market in the same way that we see growth on D Line being a very strong transit market relative to, say, A Line, which is a decent transit market, but not like D Line.
And so would that be something that the research department could look into? Are there ways to identify any of those types of correlations?
I am so glad you asked. That is one of the things I really want to do this year. And I've been working with Michael Krantz and TOD to help define that question better and acquire data that will help us better answer it.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? All right, thank you both. I think this was just great. And it's great to see things continuing, but I really do always appreciate kind of the additional context. And especially when we're up here making decisions on where investments go and things like that. It's really that frequent all-day service that is really where is driving the market. So really appreciate that. I think it helps all of us. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to our final information item. It's Imagine 2050 TPP. The responses to comments, we have Cole Henneker and Jen Hansen here.
Evening. Bring this over here. Y'all see that okay, or do you want me to a little bigger? I'm Cole Henneker. Jen Hansen's joining me today. We're back. We were just here last meeting. Wanted to give you all an update on the status of the draft 2050 TPP in response to public comment. You might have noticed in the agenda, we posted a lot. Every single document that's associated with the TPP is posted there. And it does have all the track changes that we've made to date. So I'm going to highlight a couple of things for you all. We'd take any feedback today, but also just wanted to make sure that you're all aware of the changes that we're proposing. So on this cover memo, a few things of note. We did get a question last month about why aren't there as many changes in the TPP as might be being discussed in some of the other system plans. I think we didn't really adequately describe the fact that we got over 3,000 comments before public comment and made a lot of changes in response to those to build ourselves a better public comment draft. So a lot of the concerns with our partners were addressed ahead of this public comment period. So that's why you're seeing more kind of tweaking on the edges for this version. Another thing of note here, there's 4 documents here that there's no changes in, not terribly surprising. I will note the aviation system plan, while there's not a whole lot of changes, is going to receive a substantial update in the next 2 years or so as we assess regional aviation policy through a consulting contract. So while that plan has been updated with some minor changes, it is undergoing a more thorough update in the next couple of years. The remaining memo actually walks you through the specific, what we consider significant changes, not things like spelling corrections or grammatical changes, but things that change the language or way we're talking about things. So it lays out document by document where those changes are, tries to reference you guys to the exact page number to look for if you want to see how something's reflected. And in some cases tells you why we made the change, what the comment was in response to. I did want to just note the public comment report is still being finalized, so you don't get to see all the comments that we didn't respond to with changes right now, but we do plan to post that ahead of the Transportation Committee in January of next year. I will also note this is going to TAAC next week. We're sharing all of these red line drafts with them as well. They are going to be viewing that, providing us with any feedback next week, and then their actual action on this to recommend final approval is in January, just ahead of your first action as committee members before the council acts February 15th with all of the other system plans. So
with that, I think we can do some discussion. Maybe just one more note, and I know Chair Barber, you want to mention this too. As we talked about last meeting, one of the first really significant implementations of the Transportation Policy Plan is the regional solicitation. Next Wednesday is a regional solicitation workshop of which all Transportation Committee members were invited to. It was sent from Molly Stewart from SRF Consulting, who's our consultant for the project. It's from 1:30 to 3:30. We encourage you all to attend. It's going to be a very important workshop for determining how this plan gets translated into policy implementation with our funding programs. So it's not the final say on that, but it is a very important step in that process. And if you need any more details about that, feel free to reach out to us or committee staff, and they can answer any questions, or your council staff liaisons.
Right? Questions, comments?
I didn't stop here for any particular reason. But.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were just going to keep going.
Though I will note, one of the more substantial changes in the policies and actions that we did discuss last week was some of these changes in response to tribal coordination that was reflective of the discussions that were had at the American Indian Advisory Council, which actually happened after the plan was released for public comment. So those are some more substantial changes that we made.
All right, anyone have questions, comments? I would encourage you to come to the session next on Wednesday, or a week from Wednesday, for the regional solicitation. It is really how this stuff actually gets put into place. It's a big part of, the conversations we're having there are right now, how are we going to allocate funds? Is it by our values and vision statements versus, modes and things like we've done historically? There's a big difference. And so, those are some of the kinds of conversations that are happening there. So I'd encourage you all to attend. So, all right. Did you guys, gentlemen, have anything else?
Nothing today. No.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments from you guys? Awesome. Thank you. Just as a housekeeping note, item number 7 will go on the consent agenda. So we did confirm that. And then this is our final meeting here this year, and for the committee itself. So I want to thank you all for your service and your time and your commitments. We know this committee is a lot of work. I very much appreciate all the staff from Metro Transit and MTS. You guys do fantastic work and make our jobs much easier, so it's very much appreciated. I'm going to tell you now, and then I'll have Jenna send about 10 reminder emails that next year we will be at Robert Street again for our meeting. And I'll have to even remind myself, but just as a housekeeping note. And with that, thank you all, and we are adjourned.
I thought we were supposed to bring sleeping.